we need to realize that right now the battle is between two extremes, and it's terrifying because there doesn't seem to be any social intelligence in the middle.
Newsom has now put in place a policy that allows school systems at like an elementary school level to give hormone blockers without having to inform the parents.
I can go back and forth on so many different policies and go, I can live with the left, I can live with the right. But the moment you start shifting who has social and moral responsibility for children, from the family to the state, I am against you. I will fight you with my last dying breath.
You're listening to the Mind Shift podcast. My name is Erwin McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin McManus. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
Good. It's good to see you.
Man, it is good to be seen.
So there's a couple. We just got back in from Mexico City.
And I love Mexico. And I didn't get sick.
I know.
Not from the water,
not
from
great.
the food, not from the atmosphere or the...
it was a stressful trip, but it feels good to be back. Also, it's cool to re-engage with Mexico City on a deeper level, and also to just remember how much we love that city and those people. Yeah. Amazing people. So a couple exciting things.
All right.
Well, this is our first episode back. We kind of batch recorded some episodes, and then hopefully this episode comes out sooner than later. I got to talk to Austin. But we just announced the pre-order for our brand new book, which is really your brand new book, but I'm excited. I'm a part of it. It's our baby. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's our book because with the book, we launched Arena Publishing.
Yes.
And which is very exciting.
Yes.
And my new book is The 7 Frequencies of Communication.
Yes.
And I'm very, very excited about this book. It's going to be so much fun. Right away, it becomes viral. The moment I talk about it, it just becomes viral. People start asking.
Well, before we jump into that.
Yeah.
Pre-order the book right now.
Oh, that's
right. If you're listening to this podcast, just put it on pause. Take 1 minute. Go to the7frequencies.com or erwinmcmanus.com or the link in the bio of this episode and order this book right now. There's a special bundle that we're doing where you can
because there's an assessment.
Right. So there's 2 parts to this book.
All
there's
right.
a book.
Uh-huh.
There's also an assessment. So buy the book and then you can buy the assessment. And the assessment you take online and you can discover your primary frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
We have 7 frequencies. That's what the book is about. But what I like about this book is it's a little bit different than other books with assessments.
Mm-hmm.
This book genuinely is a book. You can read this book. It's not just a breakdown of every frequency.
Mm-hmm.
There are 7 breakdowns of the 7 frequencies.
Right.
But then you have some incredible chapters that build around, like your first chapter. Can we talk about that chapter after this?
Sure.
Go and pre-order the book right now. And on the website, you can get the assessment for 50% off right at this moment. Austin's slipping us
Here it is.
a little, yes. We have our...
I love this. Here,
is that the unique print, Austin, that they sent us? So this is our Fugazi cover, our fake cover, but this is like the dimensions of what we kind of created around. It's going to be the same size as Mind Shift, which is very exciting. So, the assessment is 50% off right now when you pre-order the 7 frequencies of communication. So go to the websites, buy the bundle. So it's the book and the assessment, and you get the assessment for $10 essentially when it's normally $20.
That's amazing.
Very, very exciting. You can also take your staffs through this assessment.
Yeah.
And there's bundled packages for 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, up to 50 people. But if you have a staff larger than 50 people and you want to do the book and the assessment, DM me, DM Austin, DM my dad. We're in all the DMs, and we will figure out a special code for you guys to order exactly the right amount of books for you.
Yeah, it's a great team building process.
Yeah.
When you start working through the different communication frequencies of all the people on your team and even just the feedback mechanisms of people trying to guess what each person is and then unwrapping how they see themselves. That's just really exciting. We did this a year ago with our team.
A year and a half ago
Was when we first took the 7 frequencies to our team here in LA.
It was really cool, chaotic, because you had just created these maybe like 4 months before, 3 months before. And then obviously the team was kind of getting a little bit of exposure because we released the 7 frequencies as a part of our masterclass content with the Arena. But you did a really cool exercise where you had everybody, I think, guess the other person's frequencies.
Everyone's frequencies.
And then over 2 days, you featured different,
Right.
all of our leaders. We went through every person.
And we did a grid for everyone. We did
Yeah.
their core frequency, their cluster, the transitional, and which ones were the ones that were furthest from them.
And so a little bit
Yeah.
about the 7 frequencies.
Yeah.
So there's obviously 7 of them.
Mhm.
Motivator, Challenger, Commander, Maven, Seer, Healer, Professor.
Very good.
I was trying to remember the exact order, but I
That's
think
not the order.
I got it
but-
close. I got it close. But there's 7 frequencies. And then the assessment will unlock your primary frequency.
Mhm.
And then are we showing them we're showing them their top, Austin's giving me a 3 right off camera. We're showing people their top 3 frequencies.
Good, because
Their
I think
primary.
beyond that, it would just get confusing without having some coaching.
Right. And that we're going to unlock later.
Yeah.
But why is the top 3 so important? You call it the cluster.
Well, there's some people that really just operate off of one frequency almost all the time. But if you are an engaged communicator, if communication is something that you're actively utilizing every day, it's an essential skill at your work, your business, and leadership, and your relationships. You'll probably begin to actualize more than one frequency. You may have a core frequency, but you might have really 1 or 2 others that you also operate from. And that's why it's important, because if you're a person who speaks in front of people, you want to be able to access more than just your core frequency. And I'm absolutely convinced there are at least 2 other frequencies that most people can access very easily if they just begin to develop and grow in their communication frequencies.
Okay, so can you talk about a little, so it's kind of cool.
Mhm.
So I posted about, so Austin and the team created an incredible video using AI. No, it's all motion graphics. Oh, that's phenomenal.
Old school.
So shout out to Isaac, shout out to Austin. And we were on our way back from Mexico City and they're sending us these incredible clips. And then we posted it on Instagram, on your Instagram. We collaborated with the 7 Frequency Instagram and the Arena Publishing Instagram, which was kind of exciting. That it's cool that we get to create these companies together. It's cool that we get to release books together. I'm very passionate about this. I introduced myself to someone as, I own a publishing company. But I think what's really interesting about it is immediately friends were going, well, what's my frequency? Our realtor, Caroline, who's in our neighborhood, who we love, was like, well, tell me what my frequency is.
I think I already know what hers is.
Yeah, for sure. But I was like, no, I'm gonna buy you the book. I'm gonna send it.
Yeah.
You know, she's awesome. And so I think this is gonna be a really unique thing to work with people on their teams. Tim Moore from X Church in Ohio texted me this morning and was like, hey, we want to get this for our entire staff and work them through the assessment. You know, he gave me a specific number like of how many books in assessments, and was like, let me create a code for them to get the exact number. How do teams go through this together? How do we make that happen?
Well, I think you're asking that question just a little bit prematurely.
Okay, well, maybe not. Okay, so tell me about the frequencies.
No, the reason I want to move on is because there's so much going on in the world around us. And I thought we might take a little time today to talk about the crazy world of politics.
It's true. We're not doing the 7 frequencies. I'm so sorry. Let's talk about politics.
I know we want to talk about 7 frequencies.
I do. I got very excited about it.
And we'll come back to that in the sessions to come, in the weeks to come. But you cannot ignore that we had an attempted presidential assassination with former President Trump. And then we had the end of a candidacy with President Biden. And then we have the emergence of a new presidential candidate in Kamala Harris. And so it's pretty huge. I mean, it's a pretty big week. And I almost wish we had someone who understood campaign law, because this feels really, really interesting to me. I mean, almost a little bit bizarre. So I don't know if we should trail it backwards, because sometimes what's happening most recently is what's right in front of my head, right in my mind. But we'll work our way backwards.
I'm just writing notes on what you're saying because I'm like listing off the ideas I have.
The crazy thing that in my lifetime, we have another attempted assassination of a presidential candidate, of a former president. I still remember when Ronald Reagan was shot. And by the way, I think after they tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan, he won 49 to 50 states against Walter Mondale, if my memory serves me right. And so you never know what can happen after something like that. But what was crazy to me, and I don't know how I missed this, But I very quickly discovered there were all these far left-wing conspiracy theories that Trump set it all up, that he tried to have himself shot, that he did it so he could, booster his attempt to reclaim the presidency. And
I tried that once. When mom was mad at me when I was young, tried to set that up. A couple kids in the neighborhood. Didn't go so well.
And when someone first told me this, I think it was on someone's show or something, I thought, no, this can't be right. And then I start seeing all of these.
Well, let's break down that day a little bit, can we?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on a flight. Why does everything big happen when you're on a plane?
I'm on a plane, and I'm flying to Miami
to go see Vu in Miami. Shout out to Rich in DC and that whole
Wilkerson,
crew.
yeah.
Yes.
And
I get a text from Austin like, "Did you see the news? Turn on the TV. They tried to kill Trump." I think that's kind of similar to what you texted me along the lines. So then I'm at home building my crazy F1 Formula One Lego set that has 1,600 pieces, which if you ever have anxiety, go out and buy some Legos, because that stuff for a man, that is just like my brain, I don't know. Anyways,
this is not a paid advertisement.
This is not I would love, if Lego wanted to sponsor us and create a Coliseum with us in the middle of doing our podcast, I would love that. Okay, so I get a text, I turn on the TV, all of a sudden, and I have YouTube TV, so I'm flipping Fox, MSNBC, not really. I'm going CNN, Fox. Those are the two I'm going. And immediately the thing that struck me, that stood out, could we do not disturb it? Is that Mariah?
Yeah, it's Mariah.
Pick it up.
Okay.
Since we're gonna do it.
Well, hello. What? Good morning, beautiful. Look, Juno, look who's with me.
What's up, Junebug?
That's a good smile. Roey's with me.
Hi, Juno.
We're in the middle of shooting our Mind Shift podcast, but I'll always interrupt it for you.
Bye.
Bye, Juno.
Bye, Juno.
Love you. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Okay. Well, we left it off. Okay, so the thing that stood out to me was the misleading nature of the headlines, and that no one wanted to claim or put out that it was an actual assassination attempt.
Yeah,
and then
because that would glamorize Donald Trump, as if someone trying to kill him would heroize him. And yeah, the language is insane. I've heard some people say, no, he in fact, was it New York Times? One of them said something about Trump fell.
Austin might have to pull some of that stuff up, but it felt like in the moment, no one wanted to say an assassination attempt on the former president.
I heard he got hit by charred glass.
They were saying glass. They were saying it sounded like fireworks. But I do think this. A lot of the people in the audience said we were confused because it sounded like fireworks off in the distance. I know it's post 4th of July, so maybe that was that.
I could see people in the crowd being confused, but all the media could not be confused.
Yeah,
because the information goes out. Because when you hear 8 bullets, and then an assassin is killed, there's no by the time all those papers released, by the time all those articles released, there was no confusion. They wanted to create a misperception of reality.
Yeah. Also, this is July 24th. So we're a few weeks out of this. We have a little bit more information. There's a lot more going on in the world. I wish we had been able to do, a conversation right away. Yeah. But it was on the weekend. You were also in Miami. We've been dealing with a lot of things going on around in our organization. So we're getting to it now. So it is interesting. And I kind of like letting it simmer a little bit, because I think reacting right away, we can only give you our initial reaction versus learning a little bit from the news, learning it, the details of what happened, even hearing, now I'm paying attention a lot more closely to the RNC and the DNC, the 2 conventions.
But I want to say another thing that really struck me, Aaron, that it's just a terrible cultural thermometer, is that I don't know why, but on my social media, it just started pouring people going, why did you miss? Why did you miss? Yeah.
That shows you the difference of our social media audiences, because all of my people were like, they tried to kill our president.
Right.
he's
So
gonna win now
my algorithm is probably a more liberal algorithm
than mine. Yeah, for sure.
But my liberal algorithm was pretty much don't miss next time. And then Jack Black is on tour, and his
on the opening night, I think, of his tour.
yeah, the guy who's his
His,
whatever
like, co-lead,
co-lead basically says that don't miss next time kind of thing. He has to cancel the tour. The fact that people feel free to say that, and I'm going to say this because it's always depicted. And again, I'm the guy with the more liberal algorithm, right? But it's always depicted as if it's the right who's violent. But frankly, if you look at things objectively, there's far more violent action and language on the left.
The rhetoric of the left is really shocking to me because a lot of the stories populating on my Instagram and TikTok and all of the media that I was receiving was, how could someone miss from 125 yards? So a lot of the podcasts I listen to and kind of are getting information from, and like with TikTok, I follow all the different podcasts on TikTok just to see how clips are, because we work on clips, we work on strategies and marketing and how we do things, and a lot of them are interviewing guys going, I would not miss from 125 yards. And I reached out to friends being like, is this a shot someone misses from 125 yards? And they're like, no, I don't miss that. Not me, they're saying this in the text. But I did find it really interesting that right away, people the headlines were unique, but then also the fact that I was texting friends on both sides and half the people were saying this is staged. Like, you don't believe it, but there's no way. This is staged. This is a setup. This isn't real. And then the other half they tried to assassinate him. And then the other half, there's three halves, are saying he set himself, this is a setup. He wanted to do this to get more, campaign strategy, marketing, XYZ.
Yeah. But it is from a apologetic perspective in terms of the realization that all of media is a statement. It's not an objective transference of information. It is a subjective nuance of intention, because even the photographs of the shooter are pictures of him when he's 16 years old, which make him look like just a good old sweet all around, blue collar, kid. And if you look at the more recent pictures of him, they're more extreme. They're clearly a person who holds more culturally left-wing values. And the photographs actually matter. They're communicating a very particular message. The language of he's a Republican. He was not a Republican. And he registered as a Republican, which is very different because you have to register there to vote against someone, not just for them. And he gave only $15 to, liberal causes. But for me, it's just, you have to always step back and go, what are they trying to tell me? What are they trying to communicate with me? So I was kind of shocked. There's no way anyone would ever try to stage their own assassination and have a 20-year-old kid shoot their ear off. If I'm going to stage that, I'm going to get the best sharpshooter in the world. Yeah. Because otherwise some kid's going to blow my head off by accident. Yeah. And it's just absurd. But the fact that they knew he was there, they knew there was a threat, and they still put him on stage, the whole Secret Service thing doesn't make any sense to me.
I do find it odd that immediately people are trying to blame. Yeah. So on the right, or I don't have to go this, but media's coverage is accusing that one female security Secret Service officer of being too short and not being able to holster her gun. And I'm going, if there's an assassination attempt, I imagine everyone's got to be nervous. Whether you're trained for this or not, this hasn't happened in 30 years, 40 years. It's been a while. I imagine this is scary stuff. I imagine this is a hard moment to be in. It did strike me odd that there wasn't a whole lot of super tall men that are the president's height or taller covering him. There's roles for everyone. I get it. I feel bad for the Secret Service director. I think she just got run over in that Senate council meeting. That was really hard. She just resigned yesterday or this morning.
She had to resign.
The performance was not acceptable.
Yeah, you have this one big job
to protect presidents and former presidents and candidates.
And they just botched it at every level, and there's so many different things there. And I just think a lot of mistakes were made. But when you have one mistake, you have human error. When you have a series of mistakes, you have a cultural error.
Yeah.
And what you have is you had a culture that actually didn't know how to execute properly or didn't care about protecting Donald Trump. And that's, you have to be really honest about it.
But I thought it was really interesting because Eric Trump came out and said, I know a lot of these people that are on the stage. They covered me. They were covering me or covering my sister. These are really amazing people.
Yeah.
But he did, he brought up, there's an issue. How are there two snipers? They can't see the other sniper. That's only 125 yards away. This doesn't make sense. There's a lot of things happening and factors that play into the fact that this feels off.
Yeah. My rule is if you give me one reason, it's a reason. If you give me two, they're excuses.
Interesting.
And we have like 15 of them here.
So what's the difference between an error, human error, and negligence?
Yeah, and that's what I'd say. Human error is usually easier to identify, and because it's not usually based on a cluster. It's one significant mistake that may cause a cluster of consequences. But when you have organizational incompetency, there's lack of communication, integration, and execution. And that's what you see all the way across the board. And it could be just as simple as they didn't believe Trump was ever going to be threatened. They thought he was the threat. See, I actually think that's the bigger thing. I think that the narrative that has come so strongly politically is that Trump's the threat. Trump is the threat. Trump is the threat. What it does is it creates a lax sense of concern going, he's not going to be threatened because he's the threat. And every person who works in the Secret Service is a human being. And probably their guard was down. They probably thought, he's in Pennsylvania. He's not going to be threatened. He is the threat. And with that woman who was the Secret Service agent who missed putting her gun in a holster, everybody's mocking her. What I notice is the reason she didn't put it in her holster right away is because she didn't take her eyes off of the periphery.
I thought the exact same thing. I saw it completely differently.
Yeah, I'm going, no, this woman refuses to look down because she's looking around for any other potential threat. So don't diminish her value because she isn't, White Earp in an old, Western movie and misses the holster right away.
I think it would be an issue if you had an issue getting the gun out of the holster. I'm going, her getting it back in does not tell me she's inept. It tells me there's a lot of chaos happening. Yeah. You're in a crowd full of people. I don't know that I could have done better.
Right.
And we're so quick to judge other people. I did though, before they revealed the identity of the young man who tried to assassinate the former president, I did say, watch, he's going to be a younger white male who looks mentally unhealthy and will probably either be dead or have killed himself after or be assassinated afterwards. And I do find it odd that he gets 5 shots off immediately.
8?
No, he gets 5 shots off immediately. And then I think they start firing back. And then there's 3 more shots. And I'm going, or I'm not entirely sure how that went down, but there was like 5 and then 3.
Right, but they killed him in 1 shot.
I don't get how they let 8 shots go off before they get 1 in. It doesn't make sense. So the video of the snipers were really interesting to me because that was really hard to watch.
Yeah.
They obviously are looking, it seems like the right direction. And the people who I've spent time with that shoot regularly, I just feel that they would have seen something like that when there's people in the audience who obviously did see them, and there's people that have their own cameras saying there's a guy on the roof. So it just feels like none of this adds up. And not to be conspiracy theorists, just be like human beings who are asking a lot of questions. It feels off.
Yeah, and also the immediate responses of, we need to tone down the rhetoric, and immediately the rhetoric went right back up. I mean, Trump is still a imminent threat to democracy. And you think
I'll tell you what's an imminent threat to democracy. The fact that our president went ghost for 4 days and disappeared, and people are wondering if he's alive or not. And then all of a sudden is signing a document, posting on social media, and then it's not his official letterhead. Like, there's just weird stuff going on that doesn't make sense. That to me is a threat to democracy.
Right. Here's my question. I'd love for someone who is a political expert to respond to comments, but I think 14 million people voted for Joe Biden to represent the Democratic Party to run for president.
Okay.
And the only way he could be removed is if he steps down, and he should only step down if he is mentally incapable or physically incapable of running the campaign or running the White House. But I hear other people, I think I heard Chuck Schumer yesterday say, no, we have complete confidence in President Biden's ability to run the White House. We just didn't feel that he could run the campaign and win. Are you allowed to remove someone because you, as the political elite, do not believe they can win? I thought you could only remove them if there was an actual handicap, like a mental, physical, problem that kept that person from serving. How do you remove a candidate when you decide he can't win? What you're saying is the millions and millions and millions of people who picked him, their votes don't matter because we don't think this candidate can win. And I didn't know that was actually even a possibility. And so it feels a little bit like an odd catch-22. Either he's not competent to run for presidency anymore, and so he's not competent to be the president, and he needs to be removed, or you removed him simply because you don't think he can win.
Well, I think that's what they're saying, is that they don't think, well, I think it's a few things. I think they know that they're not competent. I think there's an incredible podcast that I showed you while we were in Malaysia with the All In crew, Chamath and Friedberg and those guys, where they talk about the lack of competency and how this is such a smoke and mirrors game right now. The fact that the president, and who do we hold accountable for keeping this so hidden? Because I think that the Dems should absolutely be held accountable for creating this kind of puppeteering situation where the president is obviously not capable, mentally, physically capable of being able to run the country. I'm more nervous about the next 6 to 8 months than I am the next 3 months before the elections happen. I think what really is striking to me is the fact that we have no idea what really goes on behind those closed doors.
Yeah, I just thought it was crazy that, again, I think it's Schumer who said, the process isn't completed from the grassroots up. There has been no grassroots process to put Kamala Harris as a candidate for the Democratic Party.
And she was a horrible VP. She did nothing. They put her in a corner. No one's heard from her. And when you do hear from her, it's like me listening to this podcast 5 years ago. I'm so sorry, guys. I was a terrible, horrible communicator. I'm getting better. But I think she was like Aaron circa 2017 on Battle Ready.
But even if she was a great candidate, to pretend that this is a grassroots movement, that she was selected by the people, that they had an open candidacy of all these different people running for this role. This has been completely manipulated from the inside. This, to me, is a greater threat to the future of democracy than any bad candidate. We've had a lot of bad candidates become president.
Yeah, we've had some bad presidents. We have a great country. We have some bad government. We have a $6 trillion plus budget annually. How do we have full-time politicians that we think can actually manage a budget, which they can't manage the budget of $6 trillion because we're in a $28 trillion deficit. So how do we have candidates that we think can actually run a country of our size that have never managed budgets even in the billions? Trump, I think, is one of the more unique candidates because he was independently wealthy, and whether you judge whether he's a billionaire or not, in assets he had $1 billion plus. So I think a guy like that, whether I like Trump's rhetoric or not, I think the left has shown the rhetoric that they use is far more dangerous. I found it really interesting that all of the internet media sleuths pulled up Biden's quote of saying Trump will now be in a bullseye, has a bullseye on him, which you look at that and I go, I don't think Biden was foreshadowing that he's going to be assassinated, but I do think rhetoric like that should be absolutely a violation of whatever candidate rules are in place on how you speak to each other. If there's any reference to violence, there should be a removal of the candidacy. We have more rules in our school systems, which is an absolute disaster. And we actually have to talk about what Newsom did in the California government with children in schools. But the rhetoric is atrocious. The inability to manage budgets is atrocious. And how can we be led to believe that candidates who've been government employees for their entire lives have the adequacy to actually manage the type of wealth and potential wealth or economic growth that our country actually the country actually obtains or is in the current state? Like Trump to me, Bezos, Musk, Jamie Dimon, but there's billionaires on both sides. Like, what happened to Schultz from Starbucks? He just disappeared the moment he announced he was going to run as a Dem. Like, these guys need to be looked at. However you feel about them personally, these are the types of people who probably started our country. Guys who are innovators, entrepreneurs, thinkers, coders. Like, this potential is there, but yet we don't let them. We find these like full-time politicians who I don't think are adequate enough. What Biden has accomplished is allowing the left to empower school systems to put drugs into children without permission from their parents. Like, if that's his legacy, to me, this country has become a fallacy. Well, now you're talking about
what's happening in California.
I am talking about what's happening in California.
So you need to be more clear.
I am being as clear to the people who know. Newsom is evil. I truly believe that. And following in line with like the left's policy is atrocious. The bill, and we can post this in the link, but Apple News released a thing, and I think it was through the New York Times, might have been the LA Times, that Newsom has now passed a bill or put in place a policy that allows school systems at like an elementary school level to give hormone blockers and assist a transition against parents' wishes
without parents even knowing,
having to inform the parents.
Right.
Which is
not only not needing parental consent, but not being obligated to inform parents at all. Now the schools work against the parents. And what's interesting is in communism, children belong to the state. In American society, this representative, a democracy.
I think that's a great point.
Children belong to their families.
The left is now the American Communism Party, the party of American communism.
And this is where you can see it. You can look at all these ideologies, but just go to the core. In communism, children belong to the state. In democracy, children belong to their families.
Yeah.
And we've shifted so far to where children belong to the state.
It makes me angry, and I have no children, but there are kids that I love, and there's parents that I love, and I look at them and I go, I cannot believe, and this has been a conversation with a lot of the guys that we know for the last couple of years, because they have infants who now are becoming toddlers, who now are becoming, early teens, 10, 11, 12. And they're going, the rhetoric, the information, the policies inside of the school system does not actually protect the parents.
It allows the child to become the experiment of the state.
So if you're a part of the left, you've now become a part of the American Communist Party. And I hope you become aware of that. I hope you do your due diligence, and I hope you do the research. I don't know that there are other great options. I don't know what nickname I should call the right, but becoming like Trump has now called them the Trumpsters. I don't know that I want to be a part of that either.
No.
But you cannot be a part of a system that allows the division between child and parent. That is unacceptable. And I think it's evil.
What is interesting is I'm a lot older than you and most of our listeners. And when I was in my 20s, there was always this kind of slippery slope argument of saying, if you allow this, this is going to happen. It always sounded insane. And the end game 40 years ago was, if we move toward these more leftist ideologies, in the end, we will lose our children. Our children would become the wards of the state. And in my lifetime, that's already happened.
But then what do you do? Because if you have a child and you can't put them in private school, and you live in California, or you live in New York, or you live in Seattle, you live in these more like liberal states, or cities, liberal cities, what do you do? There's not a lot of options. And who knows if the other option is a better option, but it does. We talked about that, right? Like what you've watched in the last 40 years happen is really unique, because when Prop 8 was a conversation and with gay marriage in California, the rights the perspective of the right
Mm-hmm.
was that if you let this happen, this is actually a cover for pedophilia and what they will try to do to children in the next 10 to 20 years. And the left said that's absurd, that's disgusting, that's crazy. You tried to make everything about you're connecting gay people to pedophilia, XYZ, this is atrocious. But you look at what's happening now, and it does seem that the escalation from Prop 8 has now built a foundation, or the foundation that Prop 8 built for the gay community has now escalated to this like ultra liberalism, to where it is not about being gay or getting married or having equal rights. It's now about almost the division and exclusion of this relationship between the government and children. And that to me is very scary.
Yeah, it's because whenever you have an argument, the extreme always begins to wield power. And so when you have people on the right, and let's say that things that were normal in our society just a few years ago, like believing in a nuclear family, believing that marriage is between a man and woman, believing that children are rightly under their parents, believing whatever, those things now seem weird. Like what you believe in nuclear family, what you believe marriage should be between a man and woman, what you believe in conservative values, or, I've never been a guy that thinks you should fight for prayer in schools or 10 Commandments in school. I always think that's a little weird in some ways. And
why? Why do you think it's weird? But let's talk about that, because I don't want to.
I think it's weird because I don't believe that Jesus ever commanded us to try to impose our beliefs on the society or the government or the institutions. That the movement of Jesus is supposed to be an interpersonal movement. It's not supposed to be an institutional movement. So
it's not something you're against. You're just you feel that when we focus on those things, it's the wrong thing to focus on.
You're trying to make people act like they're Christians, and I think that doesn't ever work well. But
versus having a real authentic relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And or having a moral, like a healthy society. Like I actually think like do not kill creates a healthy society. Do not steal creates a healthy society.
So then how do you, because that's Old Testament.
Yeah, that's the 10 Commandments. I think it creates a healthy society.
Right.
And so you may not want to put the 10 Commandments in the school, but the moment you actually replace those human values, what are you replacing it with? That's the question. And so, one of our people in our community, in our team, Brooke, she just went and spoke against this book that's available to children. That's
in the library.
Yeah, for I think it's like for, I don't know what grade, but it's like, small children, first, second, third, fourth grade, that actually teaches what they call queer ideology the whole way through.
Interesting.
And I asked her, what is B? It goes A, B, C, D. And
it's
I go,
an alphabet. Okay.
Yeah. And I think she said B was bi rather than boys.
Yeah, goodbye.
Right?
That's crazy.
And then G, I think, was gay rather than girls. And so you've eliminated boys and girls, B and G, and the whole book is teaching an ideology. And so what strikes me is we've gone through a transition where we've taken the 10 Commandments out and put an ideology in. And so we didn't leave it neutral. It wasn't like, okay, let's create a neutrality. We actually moved from what people would say one extreme to the other. And I'm, and so I'm looking at it going, it's always the extremes who rule because the people in the middle are too milquetoasty to make hard decisions. And so if you're on the left, it's the people on the extreme left who actually rule. If you're on the right, it's the people on the extreme right that actually rule. It takes an incredible amount of intelligence and social will to be in the center and go, no, this is unhealthy and that's unhealthy. And there's no way in the world we should say that even though the United States has been heavily influenced by Christians, no one should be forced in any public school to adhere to the Bible or to Jesus or to God. You shouldn't be forced to believe in God in school.
No, but you should. I don't think you should be forced to do anything in school. I do think establishing healthy core values in the school system is important. We are a nation that was built on a religious belief,
Yes.
right?
But we should, that's what I'm saying, we should not also be allowing ideologies that teach our children that there are not two basic genders or sexes, that, that humans aren't basically male and female, boy and girl, and creating this kind of confusion in 5-year-olds. And we need to realize that right now the battle is between two extremes, and it's terrifying because there doesn't seem to be any social intelligence in the middle at all.
I don't know that the right is as extreme as it was 8 years ago.
No.
I think the right figured something out in the last 4 years that was like, oh, here's the left and this is what they're doing. Let's let them burn their own bridges and dissolve their own party, because they've created this extreme wokeness that has completely imploded their morals and I think even convention core values. What is a liberal anymore? It feels that it's completely all over the place. And you look at things like the Black Lives Matter movement. The reason why we couldn't get behind that, so for obvious reasons now, but hindsight is 2020. When you're looking at their initial core values was the
destruction of the nuclear
family.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you go, that just can't be healthy. I'm going, we removed prayer from schools, but prayer is something that's actually a religious belief that we protected in the Constitution, right? So that people can actually believe whatever they want and have religious freedom. We should be implementing core values. If you're not praying to the same God, my personal feelings, my beliefs are different than what I think it should be in our school system. I think the act of prayer is really important. The act of seeking a higher power. How is it that in the 12-step system, this idea that you have to relinquish power to something that's higher than yourself, they get it, right? So you get it in the prison system, you get it in the 12-step system, you get it into these, you get it in the core of our Constitution, but yet we have this removal of systematic and organizational core values that I think are really important for children. We should be teaching, one, how to understand other religions. It's okay that someone else prays, but you need to respect prayer. You need to respect meditation. You respect this ability to become self-aware. The reality is that our school systems take away the dependency on something that's higher than them because they want to enforce that government is the only high authority you should worship. And that is the scary thing. Yeah.
What's also interesting to me is to pay attention to what people accept as their identity. If I say to you, you're a racist, and you go, I'm not a racist, let me walk you through why. And then I might still call you a racist, but you don't own that identity. You're saying, I'm not a racist, you're misidentifying me. And that's what happens a lot on the right, is that everybody ends up being called a racist, and they go, but I'm not a racist. Look at my history, look at my record. And so at the very least, they're not owning that identity. They don't want that identity. If you talk to a KKK guy, he would say, yes, I'm a racist.
Are they still there? They exist?
I'm sure they're out there somewhere.
Okay. We don't know any of them.
But if you talk to them and you said, you're a racist, they would go, yes, I am. We're the race, right? And so they would own that identity.
Okay.
But when you talk to the political right and you say, oh, Republicans are racist, they would go, no, we're not. We actually embrace everybody. Now on the left side, if you go, you believe there are more than two genders, they would go, yes. You believe that biological men can be women if they self-identify. Yes. You believe that children should be taught queer ideology from an early age so they can be liberated, free, and healthy. They would say yes. And so the difference between the left and the right is that the left attacks the right for things that the right says, no, this isn't true about us. But the right attacks the left for things the left said, yes, this is what we believe is true and right. And I think that creates for me a sense of dissonance going, if you're going to argue against the other side, argue against what they say about themselves, not just what you say about them. Otherwise, you're creating a straw man. And I'm not interested in what the right says about the left. I'm interested in what the left says about itself. I'm not interested in what the left says about the right. I'm interested in what the right says about themselves. And that way I can make a more honest assessment of what I think is the better choice for the future. I don't care about personalities. I don't like Trump as a persona. I've not respected Biden for probably 40 years. as a persona. I don't feel confidence in Harris as a persona. So then you have to then step back and go, I'm just going to look at policies. And what policies do I think will create a better future? And that's the way I think you have to kind of make decisions going forward.
Policies do not create a better future. People create better futures.
No, that's true. But policies are how government systems work. So here's what I would say going for the next 100 days. Here's my question. In the next 100 days, can the mechanism that runs our political systems, can they make Kamala Harris seem like the most competent, exciting, qualified candidate we've ever had?
It's so fascinating because there is no way that if there wasn't specified like funding to Biden and Kamala, because that's really, we should talk about that in another episode, but it's because those funds are tied to that ticket name. So if you remove one, you can keep the funds within her
She's the only
name.
one who can legitimately use that funding.
Right.
Yeah.
So they would have had to give it back to all of the people who donated. So they have to keep her on the ticket. It'll be really unique to see what they can do. This will be either one of the greatest moments of marketing in American history, maybe the history of the world, or one of the greatest implosions of political party that we've ever seen. I think it's over for the left. I think Harris is a dumpster fire. I think her husband, if you look into his background, is a dumpster fire. And I think they are the worst representation of the left. I think there's some phenomenal brains on the left. I think there's some really interesting people. I think if Michelle Obama was running, I think it would be...
everyone wanted, right?
I know. I was trying to explain
Except
this.
for her.
I was trying to explain this to we were talking about this with McLaren the other night. And I was like, here's the thing. I think Harris running is really bad. I think she's inept. I think will be a political failure, and there's no way she becomes the president. If she does, there is more conspiracy than we will realize because she is so unlikable. And I think she polls lower than even Biden does. And it was like a 30% polling.
She's polling higher in some,
Higher in some. Which ones?
No, there are several.
Yeah?
Yeah. Here's what I think, just from a cultural, like sociological perspective, I want to study. Trump doesn't really have a machine that makes him look better than he is. You just see Trump because he thinks he looks awesome. So he doesn't build any machine. But in the next 100 days, we're going to watch a machine take someone that across the board Americans perceive as incompetent and incapable of handling the presidency. And in 100 days, she's going to look awesome if they do their job right.
3 weeks ago when we were in Malaysia, she was polling below Biden.
Yes, but she'll quickly start polling higher.
Of course, because they have to. There's a swarm effect.
Yeah, I think MSNBC and all, they're saying, man, her speech, we were like jumping out of our seats. We were just enthralled. We're just inspired. I'm going, no one in their right mind should believe that. But if you say it enough, people begin to believe it.
Yeah. And
when the media controls the narrative, it's amazing how people get swept up in false perceptions of reality.
Yeah. Check out the All In podcast. Please do. They have such a unique political perspective. There's 4 or 5 of them that host the show. They're all VC guys. Some, however you feel about big business guys, but they're really smart people, and they're conservatives and liberals, and they're kind of all together libertarians. But they do unique things. And on their pod, I thought was really special was they had former President Trump on. And they really, in the episode after, did you listen to the Trump episode that they did?
I did not.
But you listened to the episode afterward they sent you. And they did 2 episodes after where they talked about, like, look, we did the same thing to both. We reached out to Biden's office and said, we'd love to do an open forum. We're kind of just, it's really soft questions. We just want to hear them talk about the things they care about and who they are. And Biden's team refused. Right. So I think there's just so much there that I think is really interesting. If you dig underneath the surface, if you watch mainstream media, you really are being kind of manipulated and coerced to believe whatever they believe. And I think you got to go back and forth. In this scenario, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens in November. All I care about is that the economy gets stronger. We protect kids, that people have rights. Even like my rhetoric or conversation around Prop 8, like, I was a college student. I cared about all my friends, gay, straight, whatever. I didn't think back then about sexuality as their primary identity. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting to me. So I think I had a different perspective when I was in college. Now I look at like the road and what the left has taken, and now what they're trying to take, and the rights from parents and children. And I think that's really unique. So I think, I was talking to someone, what I love about the people in our community, in our world, both in a Mosaic and outside Mosaic. I had some really great conversations with some guys who were DMing me while we were in Malaysia going, I'm really grateful you guys talked about this, but I'm really torn because 8 years ago, I would have vehemently disagreed. We lost a lot of friends 8 years ago when I said some stuff about Trump being like, I actually think he's going to win, and I think this is why. People really did not like me. I've lost friends. We've lost Mosaic people. We've lost, supporters. And then this young man who's awesome was like, I really disagreed with you 8 years ago. And now I'm scared because I'm starting to agree with you guys more. And he's like, I'm now, and he's like, now I'm a decade older. Now I see things different. Now I've made a little bit of money. Now I don't want my taxes to go away. Now I realize what the left's doing. So we have to kind goodbye to all of our old audience.
Yeah.
Everyone who disagreed with you or disagreed with us, and everyone who judged us, and everyone who came at us, you're welcome back. You can come back. It's not embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's a little awkward. It's okay. You can do it. You can send this part to your friends. You're welcome here. Mind shift.
Yeah. I think for me, like I can go back and forth on immigration policy. I can go back and forth on economic policy.
Okay.
I can go back and forth on so many different policies and go, I can live with the left, I can live with the right. But the moment you start shifting who has social and moral responsibility for children, from the family to the state, I am against you 100%. I will fight you with my last dying breath when you try to take control over our children and give it to the state and take it away from the parents. That to me is a line that you should not cross.
And with that said, pre-order the 7 frequencies of communication. This is a heated episode, but I think this is a good one. We got to clean up some of my comments, I'm sure. But guys, want to say thank you for listening to this podcast. Everyone who tunes in each and every week, thank you so, so much. For everybody who's rating and reviewing this podcast, if you haven't done it, I encourage you to do it right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Erwin, my dad's YouTube channel, but we're both on it. Hit the subscribe button, leave us some comments. Let us know what you think. If you think differently than us, we welcome you. Stay here. Keep listening. Send us your questions. Send us your ideas. Send us your different perspectives. This is not a one-sided conversation just because we have mics and you don't. We want to have conversations with you guys. We actually really appreciate the different people who reach out and have different opinions. It really means a lot to us. If you're listening to this right now, take a second. Pre-order the 7 frequencies of communication. I love, love, love the subtitle. We didn't talk about the subtitle, but go pre-order it, buy the assessment, do the bundle pack, save 50%
The hidden language
off.
of human connection.
The hidden language of human connection, and take the assessment in September. I cannot wait. Support this new publishing house, Arena Publishing. Buy this book, 7 frequencies of communication, and we'll see you guys next week.
This has been fun.
It's been something. All right.